Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a document you shared with us, a really detailed look at the coffee scene in modern Shanghai.
Yeah, it's quite something. Our mission is to basically cut through all this material, pull out the most important insights.
And give you a clearer picture of what's truly driving the coffee culture in, well, one of the world's most dynamic cities.
Exactly.
This source is packed. I mean, it covers everything from how coffee even got popular there to the real nitty-gritty of beans brewing.
And the sheer business of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're definitely going to uncover some fascinating stuff together.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, setting the scene,
Mm-hmm.
what does the document say it was like, say, early on? Finding coffee, especially good coffee.
Right. Well, for a long time, it was tough. The source points to the early 2000s specifically. The few shops that existed were pretty expensive.
Mostly serving who?
Mostly an international crowd, or, people looking for that very specific kind of upscale vibe, not your everyday thing for most locals.
And the document has that great story,
Yeah.
the one on the metro. It really brings that time to life.
Oh, yeah, the anecdote about the man buying the coffee from that famous Seattle brand.
Right. For the young woman, she gets all excited at first looking at the cup.
Then she takes a sip, and her face just drops. Immediate disgust pushes it right back at him.
And he's stuck holding this expensive coffee he doesn't want for the whole ride. It's such a vivid snapshot, isn't it?
It really is. Captures that initial, maybe culture shock, the unfamiliarity with the taste.
Definitely. But that reaction, it started to change, didn't it?
It did. The source notes a significant shift by around 2015. Coffee wasn't just for the expats or the super wealthy anymore.
So who started going?
You saw a real rise in middle-class customers, people embracing it as part of this modern, maybe trendy lifestyle.
And then, boom, the explosion the document talks about.
Exactly. By 2016, mass popularity hits. And, as the source says, in a very Chinese tradition, the market just got incredibly saturated, almost overnight.
Like you'd walk down the street and see.
2, sometimes 3 coffee shops, practically next door to each other. It became common. Demand just shot up, and supply rushed in like crazy. Maybe too much, too fast.
Okay, so this incredibly rapid growth happens.
Right, but here's where it gets tricky, according to the source. All these cafes pop up, but consistent quality. That became a real issue.
A major hurdle. And one big problem identified was roasting.
Yeah, finding someone who really knew how to roast coffee well, that was apparently uncommon.
Which connects to that pointed quote, right, from the roaster who felt Starbucks had.
Ruined coffee in Shanghai.
Yep.
Yes. Their argument, as the source lays it out, was that so many people's first taste was this very dark, often bitter roast.
So people started expecting coffee to taste bad or harsh.
Kind of, yeah. It set an expectation. And this led to what the author calls Korean roast, being pretty common in early shops, basically. Beans roasted so dark they were practically charred.
Wow, it's burnt.
Pretty much, creating that bitter taste profile people thought was normal. And the problems didn't stop at the roast itself.
What else? Sourcing beans?
Big problems there, too, according to the document. Many vendors were just buying pre-bagged coffee. Sometimes old stock, even.
Oh, not ideal.
Not at all. And if a shop relied on a central roaster, they were totally at their mercy. If the main batch was bad one week...
Then dozens of cafes had bad coffee that week.
Exactly. No control.
And what about the shops that did have their own roasters? Did that help?
You'd think so, but the source suggests often not. Sometimes the machines were just for show, like decoration.
Really? Just sitting there?
Or they'd use them to roast huge batches, enough for weeks, and then store it all in these big plastic bins, not airtight or anything.
So the quality would just plummet.
Instantly. The author apparently tried suggesting roasting smaller, fresher batches, but found many vendors were just unaware, didn't know it was practical, even with the equipment right there.
A real knowledge gap. So moving from the roast to the beans themselves, the document mentions a disconnect.
A big one. A disconnect between what vendors claim versus what they actually carry. Lots of talk about only Arabica, but actually verifying that, given the market, tricky.
And the source gives some background on imports, right? Vietnam.
Yeah, historically, China imported huge amounts of Vietnamese Robusta, like 100,000 tons before 2015. That was half of China's total coffee import.
But that was mostly for...
Well, wait, almost all for instant coffee production. That dominated.
Okay, but things shifted by 2015.
Yeah, there was a push for China-grown coffee. Yunnan province became a key area. mostly growing Arabica. There was even a big Nestle co-op mentioned.
So more local Arabica started coming online.
Some, yes, but even with that shift, by 2016, the overall market volume, still overwhelmingly instant coffee, like 98%.
98%. So fresh coffee was tiny.
Just 2%. And within that tiny slice, the source says countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia were still major sources, not necessarily the high-end single origins people might think.
What about beans from, say, Brazil or repackaged stuff?
A very, very small percentage of that, already small 2%.
Wow. And this links back to the knowledge gap you mentioned among the staff.
Absolutely. The source is pretty clear. Many baristas, even shop owners, weren't really aware of different coffee species beyond just Arabica.
So they didn't know the difference between, like, a Typica and a bourbon, let alone Robusta.
Often not. They might buy beans with little clue about the origin, the characteristics, or worse, knowingly buy stale beans just because they got a better deal.
And there wasn't much oversight.
Seems not. The document points to a lack of knowledge from authorities, lack of enforcement, and also just general consumer ignorance about what makes quality coffee. It all kind of feeds itself.
And there are anecdotes about this, too.
Yeah, the pop-up vendor example. Selling beans claimed as single origin for 100 RMB, which is quite a bit.
But had no idea where they were actually from.
None at all when pressed. And maybe the most telling thing, the author found only one vendor in their entire research who even admitted using Robusta beans.
And that was just for training.
Just for internal staff training, never for customers. It shows how strong that only Arabica perception was, even if the reality of imports was different.
Okay, so beans and roasting are complicated. But the source goes further, right? To the invisible ingredients.
Yes. Water and milk, things most people probably don't think twice about.
Water quality, an invisible issue for most vendors.
That's how the source puts it. Most didn't seem to consider it. Water treatment was rare, mostly found only in the really high-end places.
Did anyone use, like, bottled spring water?
Very few. The document notes maybe one exception that had this surprisingly complex filtration system set up, but generally, no. Tap water, maybe filtered, maybe not.
And milk. Described as pretty difficult. Why?
Well, mainly the prevalence of UHT milk, the ultra-high temperature stuff that lasts for months on a shelf.
Not really fresh.
Not at all. Or sometimes products that seemed watered down, or just non-dairy options taking over.
What about milk labeled fresh?
Even that was often suspicious, according to the source. Sometimes it had these really long shelf lives, like 20 days or more, which isn't typical for truly fresh milk.
So finding actual, real, perishable fresh milk was?
Very rare. Again, the author found only one vendor confirmed to be using it. It really makes you think about all the hidden factors in your cup.
It absolutely does. Things you just take for granted elsewhere, maybe.
Right. So even if you lucked out with decent beans and a good roast, bad water or UHT milk could just tank the whole thing.
And then there's the human element, the baristas.
Huge variation in skill levels across the city, as the source notes.
And a common focus seemed to be not necessarily the coffee itself.
Well, the observation was that many baristas put a lot of energy into latte art, making it look pretty.
Which is nice, but...
But maybe sometimes it came at the expense of mastering the fundamentals, like pulling a really well-balanced espresso shot consistently.
The source does acknowledge the good ones, though.
Right. Oh, definitely. It's careful to mention the inspiring exceptions. Baristas who were clearly passionate, who talked about their idols, who really wanted to learn and become experts in the craft. Those people were there too.
Okay. And this whole discussion about skill and knowledge,
Yeah.
it leads the source into talking about coffee waves.
Yes, it introduces this framework. First wave is just, coffee as a basic caffeine delivery system. Think diner coffee, maybe.
Got it. Second wave.
Adds awareness of origin, basic quality notions, often tied to the rise of brands like Starbucks, and also the huge instant coffee market. Getting coffee easily, maybe with some branding.
Okay. Then third wave.
That's where the focus shifts significantly to the craft. Roasting profiles, different brewing methods like pour-over, espresso technique, really treating coffee like wine or craft beer.
And the source mentions fourth and fifth waves, too.
It does. Fourth adds maybe more focus on the science and consistency of quality, and fifth wave gets incredibly detailed.
How so?
It looks at everything. Seed type, seed quality, specific roast details, water chemistry, precise brewing parameters, caffeine levels, even the type of cup, the service, the total time from bean processing to the final drink. Excellence across the entire chain.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
So based on that framework, where did the source place Shanghai's scene back in 2016?
The conclusion was barely reaching third wave in the fresh coffee market. People were starting to care about roasting and brewing, but finding consistent quality was still a struggle.
And the overall market volume, still second wave.
Very much so, dominated by instant coffee. That fresh third wave, let alone fourth or fifth exploration, was just a tiny fraction.
And the author themselves kind of went on this journey.
Yeah, they mentioned how researching all this fundamentally changed their own perspective, made them start evaluating coffee using those super detailed fifth wave factors: seed, roast, water, brew, cup, time, the whole package.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what did it actually feel like visiting cafes there based on the reviews in the source? The author had a standard test order.
Yes, typically a single espresso and a cup of just steamed milk foam. To judge the basics, the coffee extraction and the milk texturing skill.
And the results were, well, mixed.
Very mixed. Exactly what you'd expect given everything else. There were definite highlights mentioned.
Like which ones?
Places like G plus Gigazone, called one of the better places with an excellent barista. IG Coffee, La Sosta got praise for good foam and staff. Vinjoy, Protoss by UniUni were also noted positively for brewing or staff.
So good experiences are possible.
Definitely. But the quality issues were just as apparent in other reviews.
Examples.
Blackbird Cafe showed inconsistency between visits. Taisha's and Coffee Q5 had their own roasters.
But still produce dark, acidic coffee.
Apparently so. And Roaster Cafe, also roasting in-house, served dark, bitter coffee, with the owner kind of suggesting that's what the market expected, back to that learned preference for bitterness.
Right. And anecdotes about struggling baristas.
Yeah, the Stay Real barista having trouble with just a simple steamed milk and foam order, or Joy Spot being hit or miss with foam quality. It illustrates that range of skill.
So beyond the coffee itself, how did cafes stand out in that crowded market? The source talks about themes, added value.
Absolutely crucial. Cafes combine themselves with all sorts of things to draw people in.
Like what?
The list is amazing. A cafe and a camera museum, IG Coffee. One attached to a hair salon, IMG. Cafes inside antique shops, La Jardin Secret, woof woof.
Wow. Keep going.
One combined with bike repair, an ice cafe, another with a tailor, Penhall Cafe. One themed around pandas and office space, Panda Walk Office. Even one inside a gigabyte computer showroom, G plus Gigazone.
So it wasn't just about coffee, it was the whole concept.
Exactly. Create an experience. Offer something more. The source even differentiates added value products, like selling cakes or mugs, from value-added products, like offering an upgrade, say adding whiskey to your coffee. Shows the hustle and creativity.
The document also briefly mentions other physical things, hardware, menus.
Yeah, just quick notes. The huge variety of espresso machines and grinders, hardware people were using. The importance of menu design, making it clear, easy to read, avoiding confusing jargon, and even business cards as a simple tool to help customers remember a place they liked.
Okay, so let's bring it all back. This deep dive really shows Shanghai's coffee scene just transforming incredibly quickly.
Absolutely. From hardly any decent coffee to this absolute explosion of cafes by 2016.
But the key takeaways from the source seem to be that speed, that saturation, and the real persistent challenges in getting consistent quality.
Yeah, across the board. Roasting skills, bean knowledge and sourcing, water, milk, barista training. These were all significant hurdles that hadn't really been overcome yet on a wide scale.
And that big gap the source highlights.
Yeah.
The main market volume still being instant coffee, very second wave.
While the fresh coffee scene, that small percent, was only just starting to figure out third wave stuff, still a long way to go, it seems.
So you, listening, now have a much deeper understanding of all the factors swirling behind the scenes in Shanghai's coffee world, at least as described in this document from that time.
It's a complex picture.
It really is. So here's a final thought, drawing from the source. Given the author's own shift towards evaluating coffee, using those super detailed fifth wave criteria, seed type, quality, roast, water, brew, service, time, what does this document suggest about how the Shanghai market, or maybe any rapidly growing coffee market, might need to evolve to get past those initial quality inconsistencies, or maybe closer to home? How might focusing on those specific variables change how you evaluate the coffee you drink wherever you are?